Hello and welcome everyone to SwiftUI from Scratch episode 11. Today let's talk about ternary operators and what is their usage inside your application. First of all, we will cover the basics of the concept and later on use it to build our custom-made menu to navigate throughout your app's UI. If you are already familiar with ternary operators, feel free to skip the video towards the coding part. As always, be sure to subscribe and like the video if you've enjoyed the content, and check out our GitHub profile with full code coverage and free exercises for SwiftUI. Ternary operators are very easy to pick up and use. It is an alternative for an if-else statement and it is widely used in SwiftUI inside of view modifiers. Let's take a look at the syntax real quick. As the name suggests, there are three parts in ternary operators. First part is an expression which must return a boolean value of either true or false. After that goes a question mark which indicates that we are questioning the result of the expression. Next comes a value which will be returned if the condition is true, and after a colon is a value to return if the expression is false. Both of these options for the return value must be the same data type, so for example 2 strings, 2 integers, 2 booleans, and etc. The equivalent of this particular ternary operator would be this if-else statement. To demonstrate the usage of ternary operators inside of SwiftUI, I will be making a custom menu to navigate throughout the application's UI. So the user will tap the buttons and will be redirected to other parts of the application. So we will start by making a new structure called menu, which is a view, and it has its body property. And it will basically be an H stack with 4 icons inside of it. So we will do image from the system name library and use person for this. Let's copy this 3 more times actually. And we will do house for the first one as kind of a home. Then we will have bell for notifications, I guess, and message for messages. Let's now call the menu inside the content view and see the result. And we just got 4 simple icons on one row for now. To make some spacing between the icons, we will use a new view which is called a spacer. It will be best to demonstrate it, so before the icons we will basically do spacer, and you can see that it will be pushed to the right side of the whole H stack. It basically takes all the available space and fits the content like this. If I were to put a spacer right at the end, we would have the icons back in the middle. So a way to space out the icons evenly across the screen regardless of the device's width, you could use the spacer and put one between each of the icons. And as you can see, we get an even space between the icons across the screen. I have also changed the font for the whole VStack, so the icons are bold and a little bit bigger, and also invert some padding to our whole H stack. Now a way to push this menu to the bottom of our screen where the menu usually is in the application's UI, we can use a VStack inside our content view and again use a spacer which will push the whole menu to the bottom of the screen. Now we need a way to tell which of those 4 icons were tapped by the user and show the content we want for our application. We can do this by specifying a new state variable inside our content view. So let's do add state private var, and we will call this selection, and this will be an integer which will be 0 by default. So 0 will stand for the home, for the house, and we will have 0, 1, 2, and 3. The way to bind this to our menu structure is by making a binding variable right here. So binding var selection, and this will be an integer. Right now we're missing an argument for the menu, so just simply bind the selection from the menu to our content view. Now we will use an on-tap gesture for each of these icons. So we will say on-tap gesture, and when the user taps this house icon right here, the selection will be equal to 0. Let's do the exact same thing for the others. So if he taps the person, the selection will be equal to 1. Then for the bell 2, and for the message 3. Let's now determine what kind of a view will be displayed onto the VStack inside our content view based on the user's selection. To do this, we can do a switch statement, and we will be switching the selection variable. And inside of this, if the user chooses 0, we will show a color of red with the edges ignoring safe area all modifier. Let's do the other options as well. So now if the user chooses 1, which is the person in our case, let's do blue and continue the process. So if he chooses 2, we'll do orange, for example, and then we also need a default value. So this will be a color of green, for example, again with the edges ignoring safe area all. So the default in this case stands for the value 3, but the switch statement must be exhaustive, so it must cover all the cases. And the content view doesn't know that it can only for us be values from 0 all the way to 3. It is switching an integer, so it can be any other value than 0, 1, 2, and 3. So that's why we need the default value as well. Let's try resuming and see the result. As you can see, the selection is 0 by default. So we are displaying color red inside our VStack. If we play this and click on the person, we will get blue. Now if we tap on the bell, the selection is equal to 0, we'll get an orange. And if we tap on the message icon, it is a default because the selection is equal to 3, and we will get a green color. I have made some minor changes inside our code to make the displayed content more clear for us. So for each of the cases, we now have a Z stack, which contains the color we had earlier, and also a text. So 0 is home, 1 is profile, 2 is notifications, and 3 is messages. And it also displays the index, the selection of our user. So now if I play this, we got red, which is home with index 0, then profile with index 1, notifications with index 2, and now messages with index 3. The last thing for us to do is use the ternary operators inside our menu to make it a little bit better. So let's go back to our menu structure, and what I want to do is display different icons if the user selects some kind of an icon inside our menu. So this will be very simple. So for the first option, if the selection is equal to 0, then use house.fill, and else only use house. So now if we play this, you can see that the selection is 0 by default, and we will get house.fill. If I were to choose another icon, we would only get house. So let's now complete the process once again. So selection is equal to 1. If that is true, use person.fill, else only use person. And I will complete the other ones real quick. So now if we hit resume and play it, if we click on the second icon, for example, the selection is set to 1, which will change the image from person to person.fill. So whenever each icon is tapped, it will get a different image with the dot fill, and it will look exactly like this. Now let's use the ternary operators to change the foreground color of our icons. So we will say foreground color for our first one, and again, if the selection is equal to 0, we want to match the foreground color of our content. So for the first one, we want the icon to be red as the whole background. So we will do .red. And if it's not active, we will do .black. So you can see that the selection is 0, so the icon is filled and also has a foreground color of red. Let's copy this whole thing and do the exact same thing for the others. Now let's play this and see the result. So the second one, if I tap on it, it will become blue as the background, then orange for the bell, and green for the messages. The last thing I want to do is to make the active icon, which were tapped by the user, a little bigger than the other ones, so the person can clearly see what icon he tapped. For this, we will use a modifier called scale effect, and again, if the selection is equal to 0, we want to make it a little bigger. So if you use scale effect and put a value of 1, it will have the exact same size, but if we do, for example, 1.5, then it will be a little bigger. So again, if it's active, then scale it up by 1.5, and if it's not active, let it stay the same exact size. So again, you can see that the house is active by default, selection is 0, so the scale effect comes in play and the icon is a little bigger. And again, do the exact same thing for the others. So if selection is equal to 1, do the exact same thing. So if I play this, tap on this icon right here, you can see that it has the foreground color, it is filled, and it's also a little scaled up. Now I will just continue and put the scale effect for each of those images. And this is the final result. So let's go throughout our menu. So it works as intended. We got the foreground color, we got the scale effect, and we're also switching before the fill and the normal version for each of those icons. Okay everyone, that is going to wrap up the video for today. This has been Swiftly Coded with SwiftUI from Scratch episode 11. I hope you've learned something new, and as always, be sure to subscribe and comment down below. And I really hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.